Welcome to Love Letters and Books, a podcast for anyone who loves a good story. This is a soft space to explore romance and books where no topic is too taboo. I'm your host, Casey, and this week I'm sitting down with Kaylee, also known as Your Hopeful Romantic, for another hopecore episode. And man, do we get into it this week. We're going to explore the double narrative behind the phrase, good things happen when you least expect them, and how it can feel both hopeful and deeply invalidating when you're at rock bottom, and why these kinds of storylines in books can be so healing. So whether you've hit a wall or just fallen off your path, we are here to let you know you're in the right place. We've both heard this line in moments of grief, career upheaval, relationships ending, and personal quote-unquote failures. And so today we're talking about why it can feel like a Band-Aid over real pain and how presence and sitting in the discomfort can sometimes be more healing than fast-forwarding to the silver lining. Kaylee also has an incredible book recommendation this week, and I can't wait to unpack it with her. So Kaylee, welcome home to the Love Letters and Books podcast. I am so glad you're here.
I'm so happy to be back again.
I love that we're doing this. And for anyone tuning in, these are the hopecore episodes that I'm carving out hopefully once a month for Kaylee and I to connect and specifically highlight the topic of hope in life, love, literature. So we are diving in today and talking about a very specific topic related to hope. So Kaylee, do you want to walk us into the topic today?
Yes, of course. I love, first of all, that we're doing these segments because I feel like Casey and I can literally yap for hours. So it's probably best for everyone that we just split this up into segments. And if we can do it once a month, even better. Basically, I was just thinking of some different topics that we could discuss because I feel like we have to have some kind of starting point. But something that came to mind to me with the latest book that I read and really enjoyed is the double narrative behind a phrase that I feel like a lot of us hear in our life, and we can take it in two ways. There's kind of a double narrative behind it. And that phrase is, good things happen when you least expect it. And what I wanted to kind of discuss today is how, this can be taken in two different ways. There's two sides to it. There's a hopeful side. And I think that would be really important to discuss and just kind of see where things go.
I loved that you picked this topic in particular. And there are so many things to unpack about it. And I really appreciate that you're highlighting the duality of it, right? That this phrase can be taken many different ways. But I think we can all agree no one who is down on their luck is telling you good things happen when you least expect. It's always someone who's feeling like they're in a better place in life, right? So I think we can all agree that that's generally when we hear it, but we're usually on the receiving end and there's something going on, whether it's a crisis, a letdown, some kind of minor or major failure. Like we're at some type of point where someone is trying to cheer us up, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. There's something ahead of you and trying to encourage us. And let's just be honest. Sometimes in those moments, this is the last thing you want to hear. Sometimes you're just like, okay, I understand that good things happen when they least expect it, but it can be really challenging to receive that, right? And I wanted to touch on that for a second for anyone who's tuning in and is thinking, oh my God, that doesn't apply to me, or I'm struggling with that right now. I love that we're bringing this up because you can almost feel shamed when you're in a moment where you're feeling self-conscious or you don't have what you need, you feel under-resourced, or you feel like you're not doing something right, or you're not up to speed with where society is telling you you're supposed to be, whether that's professionally, financially, socially, marriage, kids, any of these things. And you can feel like when you're in that moment, this is the last thing I want someone to say to me because I feel like I'm failing. So I do want to just touch on that for anyone who's sensitive about it. I promise you, as we talk about this, no one is more sensitive about this topic than me. So you are safe in this conversation with me and Kaylee. She's pointing to herself right now off camera. She's like, you have found the two most sensitive bunnies on the planet to talk about this topic with. So,
Mhm.
Kaylee, let's start there. When you hear the phrase, good things happen when you least expect it, what are some of the things that it brings up for you? Like when we're looking at the duality of it.
Yeah, I think initially whenever I heard that phrase, it was taken in a negative way in my head, because I was always told it when things were really bad and happening in my life where I felt at rock bottom, and that was like the quote unquote advice that I was given from family friends that were really just like looking out for me, right? Like that's when that quote is said and why it is such a common saying is because it's kind of like the way that people I don't know. They just don't know how to make things better, so they'll say something like that because they wanna believe and they want you to believe that there's more out there and that things will look up and this isn't the end and this isn't it's not gonna go down, it's gonna go up from here type of thing. And whenever I think about that in my own personal experience, it was, like I said, when I was in my lowest of lows, grieving, going through, like, a huge failure, going through a career transition, whatever it was, where I was just like, where do I go from here?" So it was really hard to hear in those times because I felt like it was just not what I wanted to hear. I just wanted people to sit with me in those really hard, tough feelings instead of just like throwing a band-aid on it, I guess. So those were like my initial experiences with that phrase and why I had a lot of difficulties hearing it.
Oh, I love what you mentioned. The idea of sitting with someone in the discomfort versus putting almost like a band-aid on the bullet hole, right? And saying, well, you'll be fine. Go along. I'm sure it'll all work out. And I love that you're also honoring the intention behind it because very often these people believe in us. They see capacity in us. They know our history or they know what we're capable of. So they're just saying, hey, you're in this moment right now. You probably have a lot of distorted perception, but I know what's ahead of you. Like, I know you're going to get there, but it can feel hard to hear, right? Almost as if someone is like trying to move out of that discomfort with you when sometimes almost like the medicine is the presence and being able to just sit through the discomfort and knowing that the discomfort is going to pass. And when you mentioned this topic, I was thinking of this one phrase I've had to remind myself of a lot in the last few years. And it is where we put a period, the universe puts a comma, which I think all of the book lovers will probably appreciate. But meaning that where I think my story is over, there's probably just a pause and a continuation. And
Mhm.
I can't see it in the moment. But when you're in it, I think what you and I are both agreeing on, it is so challenging because you just can't see the other side.
Yeah.
And then I think sometimes, almost the duality of it, you and I mentioned in the last episode we did together about being aware of toxic positivity, right? And how that can take you out of presence, out of the moment, out of connection. And, it's just like the good things happen when you least expect it. I also almost changed that in my mind of like life happens when you least expect it. And when we put that label of good, bad, terrible, failure, miracle, whatever, we almost limit ourselves. And I think sometimes I look back on some of the most challenging or, God, course altering moments of my life. And in the moment, you could not have convinced me that this was what was best for me. Like, I was devastated, and I was like, "I will never recover, or nothing will ever be okay," or "I don't know myself," all the dramatic things we feel when we're, like, much younger
Mhm.
or we're in a situation. But, I also think time plays into this, and it can be really hard to connect with that in the moment when you think, "God, it hurts so much right now," or "I'm so frustrated," or "I'm feeling so bad," but I have no idea how this plays out in the book of my life, right?
Yeah,
Like, you have no idea.
it's really hard to see through the fog when you're in it.
Yeah.
And you really have to take the time to let that fog lift, like with anything.
Mhm.
You can't just expect, things to get better before they're better. Like it takes time and I think patience to be easier on ourselves too when we're really going through it because sometimes as well it's like we almost tell ourselves that we got to snap out of it right away and we can't feel through it. We got to move on, like, or else when we're really unable to even see that other side, it's just, it feels impossible. It feels like there's no way out. And I've been there. Like I have experienced that firsthand, especially with my grief. And it's not easy and it feels like so isolating and lonely and just like no one else will understand what you're going through. And that's something too that I think about a lot with this.
Oh, I love that you shared that because it really invites anyone listening, but me as well, in this conversation with you to reflect on those moments in our lives, right? Like our own stories contain so much wisdom and there's so much healing in that, right? When we sort of like mine our own history a little bit and thinking back to that moment, whatever it is for anyone listening or whatever it is for me, where you thought all is lost, it's over, right? Like nothing will ever be better. This is what I wanted, or this is what I thought I had, and that is taken from me and it's gone. And you gave the example of grief. And I feel like that is one of the most complicated ones where it's almost like we feel like we don't have the permission to grieve. And we want to almost package it up a little bit, make it more acceptable or palatable. We don't want to be too inconvenient. We don't want it to take us off course. But if you step back and you look and think, if you're grieving something, maybe the loss of a person or an identity or a life you knew, it's like, why wouldn't that affect you? I had a conversation recently with author Katie King, and we were talking about this because in her book, her main character, she wrote her main character having the ability to have like 2 years to fully grieve something. And I was like, well, that's like a paranormal fantasy. That was amazing. I loved reading about that because
Wow.
you, usually something happens on a Friday and on Monday morning, they're like, are you ready for the meeting? And you just, like you have to like kind of be
Oh
present
yeah.
like that. So I really do like that we're kind of unpacking and exploring this. And Kaylee, you chose such an incredible book and author for our episode today. So I would
Mhm.
love for you to introduce us to the book you selected and the author, if you can tell us a little bit about her and why specifically that book just brought this topic to the surface for you.
Yes, of course. I was so excited to talk about this book because I literally could not put it down. I started reading it on my flight to go see Bailey for a couple weeks there, and her name is Ronnie Matthews. She is a sweetheart from the UK, and she wrote her newest release is called Melody Whispers, and it's the first book in her brand new series, a small town romance series. And I was just blown away by Ronnie's writing. We were discussing this a little bit before we started recording because Casey's currently reading it. But Ronnie is someone like I had never read her books before, okay? But a lot of my friends, like through Bailey's circle, like they're telling me, Kaylee, you're gonna love Ronnie. You need to read her books. And so the moment finally came where I was like picking this up because we were about to do a live together on Instagram and celebrate her release. And I just could not put this down. I was so blown away by the way that Ronnie just like brings you in, like, full attention. She is so descriptive. She is so, like the feeling that she puts on the page is, like, indescribable. This book really, I felt a really big connection to it in relation to the PTSD rep, and this was represented in the male main character. And that was something that was also just a breath of fresh air to read because, I mean, I haven't come across many romance books where it is the male that is going through the mental health struggles. And I feel like there is such a huge stigma around it still to this day, which is crazy. So that was something that Ronnie and I discussed a lot on our live was just like why she decided to write about Warren and his struggles as a firefighter experiencing PTSD from his workplace, but also in connection to someone that he loved. So it was just 10 out of 10, so good. Highly recommend.
And we have a special treat for everyone listening because Kaylee, my super producer, reached out to Ronnie and Ronnie sent us a little voice love letter. And I'd love to share that with you right now.
Hi, I'm Ronnie Matthews, author of the Sutton Bay series, and most recently, Melody Whispers, the first small town contemporary romance in my new series, Iris Meadows. Like all of my books, when I wrote Melody Whispers, it was important for me to represent mental health in a way that was both uplifting and realistic. And I especially wanted to raise awareness of men's mental health and the stigmas surrounding it. Patience and healing is a huge part of Warren and Harriet's story, and I hope everyone that picks up Melody Whispers finishes the book with a heart filled with hope and knowledge that they are never alone.
Well, I absolutely love that you chose this book, Kaylee, and I really appreciate Ronnie sending us that love letter. Hopefully, she'll join us for a podcast episode soon. But picking up this book, all of the things that you mentioned really stood out to me. Right away, it was her writing, the pacing, the descriptions, and you're just in it with the characters from like page one. And it was just so beautifully done. And then we focus on the actual content of the book, the topics that are being addressed. And I really appreciate how you're mentioning talking about PTSD in a respectful way, in a way that is not like a caricature of someone going through it. I struggled with I say struggled as if it's in the past. Have a PTSD diagnosis that's going to be with me till till the very end. But so I think I'm pretty sensitive about it. Really looking for books that offer the nuance and explore it in a way that I think is like healthy and helpful and true. And that really came through in Warren's character. So I want to dive a little bit deeper into how this topic of life kind of happening when you least expect it, life taking a turn when you least expect it, when you're feeling your most rigid or that your story is over, and yet there comes the comma and the story keeps going, how that applies to this book. Can you give us a little bit of an idea of the journey that comes when life takes a turn for these characters?
Yes, of course. So basically, Warren and Harriet have a little surprise meet cute and they enjoy a night together, which ends up turning out to be that she ends up being accidentally pregnant. And she ends up having to track him down because after their one night stand, like they did not swap information. They did not know who each other were or had any mutuals. So once she finally tracks him down, he decides, like he says right from the hop. I mean, eventually it comes around, but he kind of was just like shocked at first, I think, of course, as you would be. But he was just all in with her. And like strangers, they really don't know each other other than their one night together. And he just was like 10 toes in. And it was something that obviously caught him off guard, caught her off guard. But Harriet, was just like, eventually I wanted children. So this might not be like the ideal timing, but like I am choosing to believe that this is meant to be. And, I'm going to do this thing. And he himself was just like not, exploring relationships. He was very closed off, not opening himself up because of his struggles with his PTSD. And he was just kind of starting to go to therapy, things like that. And so, like, a lot of things were heavy on his plate, but just the way that he responded to this when he was like, you know what, like, I freaked out at first, but I'm in, like, let's do this thing. It was just so yeah, it was just such a breath of fresh air and just, like, they just decided, "Let's just be friends, like, we need to be, like, good co-parents, let's do this thing together," and then eventually that turned into more, but I feel like it really just showed, like, how when you really feel like things are at rock bottom, how surprises can happen, and at first, initially, it might just be like, you might feel like it's the end of the world. Like, what else can I handle? What else can I take on? Like, or I'm not capable of providing or like helping with this situation as being like a potential dad, right? And it just like really was raw and real and showed the emotion behind those feelings and just like where they're at in life and how they could come together.
Oh, I'm so excited to kind of dive in further to the book. Like I got to a certain point and I was like, "Oh, I got to put it down and like sign on and start recording." But I am really excited about it. And I want to ask you, what do you think it was about each of the characters that added to sort of like a healing element of the book? Like obviously no one is fixing another person, but you can feel emotionally safe with someone. So was there something about this character dynamic that felt really emotionally safe?
I felt like Harriet's character, she is so intuitive. I connected with her a lot because of that and just being a big feeler and things like that. But she also just allowed Warren to take things at his own pace and open up with time because obviously she could see that he was struggling, right? But she wasn't pressuring him to tell her all the details and be like, I need to know this, we're going to have a kid together. She kind of knew from the way he was acting and responding to certain things that there probably was a little bit of trauma that he was experiencing, things like that, but she never made him feel like he had to just spill it all to her right off the hop. And she respected him, and giving him that time was like how she showed that respect. And I felt like it was just comforting to see someone that is struggling and like in it versus other books where I've read mental health rep. It's like, okay, they have been, I mean, healing is not linear. You're always going to be going through this. You can't just like get on medication or go to therapy and it's all fixed. Like it takes time. And I really appreciated that we were in it with him. Like not like from the get-go of when the event happened that caused the PTSD, but he was just obviously like just starting to seek that help. And it just gave me that glimpse of hope too, that like when you're in rock bottom, there is light eventually that you can find. And Harriet was kind of just that person that made him want to see the light again as well, and just changed his perspective on life in general. Just the way that she handled herself and how her energy was. And he wanted to be better for her as well and himself, but he wanted to step up. And he's like, if I'm going to be a dad and I'm going to be a provider, I have to do these certain things and take these certain steps, but like at a slow pace. It's not just going to happen overnight type of thing.
Well, talk about a paranormal fantasy for PTSD survivors. And I'm obviously joking because that is so beautiful. And that is why I specifically seek out books that have a PTSD theme in them, because it's a really beautiful but low stakes way to process that or to experience something you've never had. So, in my own experience, and I'll share it in just a general way, I did not feel, or even to this day, believe it or not, that I can share a lot about it because you can feel when you're sharing your experience that has facts associated to it, but it's uncontrollable feelings inside of you, almost like you are re-experiencing the worst thing that's ever happened to you and you're just at the grocery store. It's very hard to explain to someone. And so when you're sharing what happened to you, very often it can feel like you have to give a good enough explanation, or you have to be the perfect survivor, or you have to give very clear, super convincing facts that someone who is very different from you would say, oh, I feel the exact same way you do. Like it can be extremely challenging. And a funny thing about PTSD and why it's so powerful in books is because very often in the acute phase afterwards, we actually function pretty well because we can just suit up and show up. And, I've had things happen to me on a Friday. I'm at work on Monday and I'm doing all the things that are expected of me. But 5 years later, when you meet the love of your life and they are wanting to open up with you and connect with you, you're like, "Oh god, I can't do that right now." It's
Oh
interesting
yeah.
when it comes up. And so that's really the power of reading about these topics in books. And I've actually had conversations about this with Bailey and why I enjoy her writing so much as well, because people can put themselves not in the character, but in that experience. And let's say you had a very negative experience of processing your PTSD or sharing an intimate partnership, family, friends. A book like this is so helpful and powerful because you're reading about someone who's not putting the interrogation lamp on someone, who realizes that time is a gift and that emotional safety is really important. And that when people are ready to tell their stories, they do, and they don't need to be rushed. And there's so much beauty in that.
Yeah.
So I was so excited when you chose this book this month, like truly. And any type of book that people can have that type of experience with and maybe grow a little emotionally too, I just think is really powerful.
Yeah, I think too, like reading these types of books, like I love to think, and I feel like I truly am an empathetic person, but I think other readers out there can just like become more empathetic by reading books like this, where they can just see these different lives being lived and how people are approaching the traumas that they're going through. And it really like helps build that empathy muscle up because there's tons of different books too where there's different mental health rep that I've never been through, but it's just like I feel it. Like I'm feeling it when I'm reading it. And I mean, I'm known to be a crier when I'm reading too. Like any if it's like sad or romantic, I'm sobbing. But I feel like it has really helped with my own growth and just like being able to see different perspectives and put myself in their shoes and just like expand, I guess, my knowledge about different things that people can experience and how we can help them as well through it.
Oh, that's so true. And honestly, sometimes I think I read books because I missed out on a lot of experiences as a young person because I was truly struggling with very severe PTSD. And I just had to function, right? Like you have to work and do all these other things. And I remember just feeling like I had no energy left for curiosity or imagination or creativity. It was just like I literally just need to get through the day and then I can kind of crash. And that's what PTSD did in my life. And so sometimes I think that these books can be very helpful about being expansive emotionally and sort of revealing these things that maybe you either missed out on or that you're hoping for. And they're so beautiful in that way. So obviously, I have not read as much of the book as you did. You finished it. So I'm like most of the way through. Sorry, Ronnie, I'm almost there. But one of the things I picked up on is something that actually does happen in life where we cross paths with people. And there's this element that we know happens in real life, but it definitely happens in books of finding your people. And it doesn't mean that everyone in your life is wrong. It doesn't mean that, we're pointing a finger at anyone. But sometimes when we go through these massive life changes, coming across a certain type of person, it can be like a breath of fresh air where we feel more like ourselves. And I feel like that's sometimes the misconception. Like people will think, oh, you're just excited because it's something new. It's like, no, it's because I'm meeting me again. And I feel like the person I know that I am inside around these people. Like I don't have to wear a mask. I don't have to be different. I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to be better. And as I'm sharing about my experience with PTSD, I was always very surprised where I definitely maintained relationships with people I'd had my whole life, but those were not the people that I shared the worst thing that ever happened to me. Very often it was someone who, wouldn't be the person you would pick out of the catalog and was very surprising and it just worked perfectly. And I felt more like myself in those moments. So that came up in this book too, right? Because Warren and Harriet meet. I mean, they literally have a one night stand. They don't know each other. And it's that beautiful surprise or a gift of finding your people throughout your life. So, Kaylee, when you think about that concept of finding your people and what that feels like, what does it bring to the surface for you?
Hmm. It makes me like take a deep breath almost because I feel like I've just gone through like waves and waves and transitions after transitions, coming to be almost 33 now. But I feel like finding your right people to me feels like taking that deep exhale, but it's almost like you're coming home to a safe space where you just feel like you said, you can take your mask off, you can be yourself, you are not overthinking what they're thinking or any judgment they have towards you. It's just a very freeing feeling to have, honestly, when you do have that. Like, I hold on to any moments that I've had where I've felt so safe to just like let it all out, because I'm a very emotional person, very sensitive, and I find it really hard. I feel like I put a lot of walls up in my life, and that is what Warren was doing for so long, where he just was like, it's too much. Like I don't want to put this weight on anyone else and on their shoulders. And Harriet comes in and she's just like, let me help you carry the load. Like let me just like make this a little easier for you. Like you don't have to carry it all. And I feel like no one ever gave him that opening or opportunity to do so. It was like he just wanted to keep being that strong person, that strong force. Like he's like, I'm a firefighter. This is my persona. You know, I am that person that people come to, and like who am I to put my walls down and show the side of myself they don't know? Like that's a lot, right? And so I feel like from the get-go, he just this connection that he had with Harriet, it's like he had never really experienced that before, and he was like, "I'm gonna roll with this," and like I said, Harriet was very intuitive to his feelings and everything, and, like, they just maintain that open communication and that space for each other, and just with time, I felt like the walls just kept coming down for him because she made him feel safe to wanna do that.
And that's just such a beautiful love story. You know, it's funny. I think about when I met Foster, and I had no interest in meeting anyone. I just want to be clear, and he's very aware of that. Like in our history, I really had no interest. I never liked dating. Like I was just it was not something I did. But I remember meeting him and saying out loud to someone, as corny as this sounds, that it was like listening to a classic rock album on a record player that I'd had my whole life, but like I didn't know it was just it was weird. It was just like one of those things where it was like a record I'd listened to my entire life. I just put it on, dropped the needle, and like that's what meeting him was like. It was like I could sing along to the record, which I don't know how anyone's taking that, but it was just such a beautiful feel. I still feel like that 11 years later. And it was really powerful. And it didn't mean that all of my other relationships in my life were wrong. It just meant like that was one where I don't have to wear that mask. And I felt very familiar, and I felt familiar to myself. And that was a pretty
Yeah.
unique experience. I think I was not aware how uncomfortable I was even dating, because you just don't give much thought. You're like, this is how I always feel. And then I'd had that experience, and I was like, oh, I'm being reintroduced to myself in this way too. And it was just really beautiful. And I think I want to highlight for a moment when we do go through massive life changes, right? We've all gone through things that were really surprising, and allowing those relationships to change can be really challenging sometimes, where you're feeling like you're failing your relationships because you are different, or you want something different, or you're growing in a certain way, or your circle is expanding. And I feel like in all of our conversations, you know, offline, and that's why I want to share it here, is for anyone listening, like in those moments, not feeling that shame. Like you are allowed to change and grow and evolve. And our relationships, it's almost like the ebb and flow of a tide. And
Oh,
we can
yeah.
feel really ashamed when it's like low tide and we're not connected with the people in our lives, but like it comes back to us. And, you know, if we're lucky, life is long and we get all these experiences and we meet people along the way. So I'm not trying to be sunshine and rainbows, because I think we're all very clear that I am the dark rain cloud in this duo. But I do think it's important to talk about, because like in those moments, sometimes you can be really self-conscious of like, why is everyone falling away? Or like, why am I not feeling connected with people when I think I'm walking towards something that might be better for me, or I feel more like myself? Like, why don't I have exactly what I used to have around me? And so sometimes for myself, I think, well, if I was carrying tons of things in my hands, I wouldn't be able to pick up something else. And so sometimes I feel like that with relationships, like sometimes you have to put relationships down so you can pick up new ones. And maybe that is very fluffy woo woo thinking.
No,
I don't know. How are you feeling about that, Kaylee?
you're I needed to hear that today more than you know. Wow. This is like my own therapy session, and awesome. Love this for me.
Ladies and
Um,
gentlemen, I am a psychic. I just want
yeah.
everyone to know I don't lead with it, but Kaylee has heard me say some predictions. But anyway, Kaylee, yes. How do you feel about that? Right? Because I feel like I don't know who's tuning in to this episode and who's hearing it and who needs to hear what.
Mm-hmm. I feel like the shame and yeah, what's coming to my mind is the guilt around it. Like I've held on to so much guilt for certain relationships falling not falling apart, but just falling away. Like that's happened so much in my life where I have just like been the type of person that is just I've gone through so many changes and I'm only 33, but like I've literally I don't even know who I was 10 years ago. Like I don't know that girl at all. And it's like those people that were in my life at that time, we no longer have that relationship that we had then. And for a long time, I just, like, held on to so much guilt that, like, I'm abandoning people or that I am easy to abandon. Like both ways, right? Like,
Oh my God,
mhm.
I just felt that in my chest. Maybe we
Yeah.
need to do a whole episode about that, Kaylee.
Abandonment issues? Perfect. I'm here for it. Yes, yes. So it's just like something that has been ongoing for me and just like I'm currently going through a lot of change too. And again, and it's like it never stops, right? But I really am trying to just like surround myself with people that are supporting and loving of me of where I'm at. And even if I am changing, they're still there through those moments and through those times. And if they're not, like there's no hard feelings. Like it's just kind of like we change and we grow and like we can't expect people to just come with us all the time. Like we go through so much transition and I think just seeing both sides of it too is really healthy instead of just being like, you know, how I can easily say, oh, it's all my fault. Like I feel so much guilt, but like also just seeing like their side of it and what they're going through and how they're maybe not able to meet you where you're at right now. And that's okay.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, I love that we're
yeah.
talking about this. I'm going to get super corny for a moment, and I might
I
even
love
rhyme.
corny.
I'm going to rhyme. That's how corny it's going to be.
God.
Anytime I experience an emotional irritation, I try to look at it as an invitation. And so when we're talking about this topic in particular, what I think about is when we're feeling that disconnect with the people in our lives, that irritation can lead us to point fingers either at ourselves or someone else. And to anyone listening, to me, to you, like maybe you and I just needed to hear it today, just reframing it as an invitation of like, what does this actually mean? What does this actually say about relationships? And what does this actually say about how I'm showing up for myself? What does it actually say about my capacity to hold space for other people who are also evolving? When someone quote unquote fails me in that way, right? Like, I've spoken, I had a lot of health issues. I've never even had a sniffle my entire life. And then, to know me for 40 plus years, somebody would be shocked to be like, you are in and out of the hospital. Like, what is going on with you? So it can feel like that relationship deteriorates because people don't know how to hold the new you. And I'm looking at it myself in this super corny, rhymey way of an invitation not to point fingers at anyone, but say, okay, when have I done that in my life? When have I been unable to hold that space? And like trying to find like that grace and compassion and lean into that and let that be the expansive thing versus like, oh my God, I'm cutting everyone off. It doesn't have to be that. And that's why I love talking to you about this topic because I'm in a very short period of time seeing you evolve. Like every time we talk, you've got like more and bigger things on your plate and ahead of you. And I'm so excited witnessing that. And it's just a really good mirror for me of like, oh, you're also allowed to evolve and change. And whenever that brings up a difficult feeling inside of you, whether it's someone else or yourself, it's like that invitation to kind of drop in and witness it versus react to it. And I really like that. I feel like there's so many lessons in all of this. But I did
Yes.
rhyme, and that was pretty corny.
No,
So,
I loved it. I have
okay.
rhymed you in the past on episodes. Actually, if I'm thinking the whole rejection is redirection, that's kind of a rhyme.
Oh my
I've said
God.
that.
We'll try to
Come
keep it
on.
up for next time we record and see if we can rhyme about anything. But
We should make t-shirts of our little slogans and rhymes and wear
I love
them.
it. We'll just
Have a
like
merch box.
that will be our merch is just, tote bags with our corny rhymey sayings on them. But I do love that we talked about this and that we're leaning into the topic of hope. And I really think that your book recommendations are resonating so much with me. And love that we got to actually hear from Ronnie and hear, who and why she wrote this book. I think it was so beautiful. So I want to ask you as we close out this episode, what are you hoping for right now in life, love, books, anything?
Hmm. I was thinking about this, of course, before our call because I'm an overthinker. But I think in my life right now, where there's so much change and transition, and I have just been like nose to the grind, working and like barely taking any breaks. I think for me, I'm just hoping for more balance for myself because I am just like struggling because I am so excited about what I'm doing. And I feel like this is like relatable to any entrepreneur out there, or just someone that's like really trying to make their dreams happen, where you just like hyperfixate and you forget to like eat lunch or like drink some water or go outside and touch some grass. I feel like I'm just really hoping that I can create more balance in my life over the next couple months and just like allow myself to appreciate where I've come, where I'm going, and just like balance my work and life where it's not feeling like I'm gonna burn myself out or exhaust myself. I can like allow myself to just like live, but also work hard and just have that balance that I desperately need. So, Casey, I am curious to know, what are you currently hoping for in life, love, relationships, all that jazz at this very moment?
I love this question, and it actually might segue into our next episode topic when you and I come together. But I would hope for the ability to trust my intuition, the internal guidance, wisdom, direction that I feel like channels through each of us. I think it can be really muddled sometimes, or we can block it with our internal script, our responsibilities, all the things that fill our lives. But I just really want to trust it and honor it and listen to it. And I'm pretty excited about the direction it's taken me so far. So
I
that's
love
that's
that so
mine.
much.
I
I
love that we're
love
ending with this. It's so
me
sweet.
too. It is so like
It
wholesome.
is. It is so sweet. So to everyone who joined us for this episode today, one, I just really want to thank you, Ronnie, for sending us that love note. Two, Kaylee, thank you so much for working on this and putting it together. And to our listeners, always an invitation to write a love letter to me and Kaylee. We would love to read some on air and build an episode around the topics you surface. So if you are inspired, please send a love letter to lovelettersandbookspodcast@gmail.com. And we will see you next time.
Yes, we'll see you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Love Letters and Books, a podcast for anyone who loves a good story. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to follow, rate, and review this podcast on your favorite listening platform. You can find me on both Instagram and TikTok at Love Letters and Books. And if you're interested in being a guest on Love Letters and Books, suggesting your favorite author, or just want to write in an original love letter to yourself or someone else to be read on air, please send me an email at lovelettersandbookspodcast@gmail.com.